Well, as you can tell, I'm back in my office again. I'm back here at home, no longer down in Florida. We've been traveling, visiting families, so it's been a while since I did a video. And I come home to find some amazing news about Daniel Brubaker. It seems that Muslims are really fed up with Daniel Brubaker. They don't know what to do with him. All because of this little book. This little book, just a little over 100 pages. Corrections in the early Quran manuscripts. 20 examples, actually, there's 22. This book was published on May the 26th, 2019. So not even 2 years ago. And it was, I remember when it was published, in fact, the very day, 2 hours after it was published, Hatun Tosh and I were there in London at Speaker's Corner, and we got up and we held up this book. We held up this book and showed it to the world. It had only been out 2 hours before that, so we had a pre-publication copy. Now, this book was never intended to be an academic book for academics. It's actually a primer, you might say a primer, because it is just 22 examples of changes. And you may ask, well, why is that so damaging? Well, on face value, it's not very damaging. A change, an eraser, or a covering, or an insertion, all these 7 different kinds of changes that he has found since 2010. When he finished his doctorate in 2014, he had found 800 of these. I did a debate with Dr. Shabirali way back in 2014 on those 800 changes. I didn't have to show any of them. I just had to announce them and hold up some of them so the audience could hear. That was 7 years ago. Well, 6.5 years ago. And Shabir Ali really hasn't come back to me on that. That's 6.5 years ago. All of that from Dr. Dan Brubaker's PhD. What has happened since then? Well, he wrote this book. Because he has found many more since then. And he decided, I need to get this published. And so remember, Dr. Dan Brubaker never really intended to work in this area. He was going to work in other areas, but he had a conversation with Dr. Keith Small. I think it was either 2007 or 2009. I can't remember the exact year. And Keith Small just happened to show him a whole line that had changed, that had been inserted above the line of a text of the Quran in one of these oldest manuscripts. And that perked his attention. Because no one really had done any work in this area. And remember, if you're going to do a PhD, you want to do it in an area that no one else has done. So he decided to do his PhD in this there at Rice University under David Cook. And he decided to look at these changes. And he wasn't really thinking about how many he would find, 2 or 3, or maybe just a few, 5 or 6, or maybe 50. He found 800 by the time his doctoral thesis was finished, and it was passed in 2014. And when he wrote this book, he was really just looking at examples, a kind of an introductory book to show you different styles of changes from different manuscripts. All of these from the 8th and 9th century. These are manuscripts that are well known today. He went and he studied every one of these manuscripts. He went physically to every one. See, no one had done that before. And the thing that I can't understand is, why hadn't Muslims done this before? These are their manuscripts. Why hadn't they looked into these variants? See, we've done this with the Bible. Goodness sakes, I remember way back in the 1800s, Dr. Karl Vander actually debated in 1854 at the Munazara there in Agra. Rahmat Allah al-Qarani, when he debated him at that Munazara, there in the debate came up the variants that we find in the New Testament, 1 John 5:7, that was part of the debate. Goodness sakes, that's in the 19th century that happened. We're now in the 21st century. Almost 200 years ago, we've known this about our Bible. And who do you think, and where did Rahman Allah get his material from? He didn't do the work on it. It was Christians who had found that, Europeans. All of the variants that we have, about the 40 verses that are in doubt in the New Testament, we know where they are because we have done our own work. We have done that kind of work. Muslims have never done this, have never done this. So when Dan Brubaker came up with his doctoral thesis, and at that point I helped introduce it to the world, and when that became public, he then decided, well, let's do something else. Why don't we put out a book, a primer, just to show you what I'm talking about. It's the first of its kind. No one has done this before. And look at the reaction. Look at the reaction Muslims are making about this one little book, just 100 pages. Folks, let me show you the reaction. Oh, about 6 months later, we had Haitham Sidki write this response. Now, Haitham Sidki is not really, he's not a Muslim, but he was scathing against Dan Brubaker. And his report on it is actually, goodness sakes, it's 16 pages from the Al-Usur Al-Wusta. This is from December 2019. So it's about 6 or 7 months after that was written. This was written as a rebuttal to it. And Muslims finally found out about this, and they started using it all over the internet, and everybody started using it and laughing at Dan Brubaker because of this response. Not even by a Muslim. Not even by a Muslim. 16 pages for a book review of a 106 or 105 page book? Since when do you do 16 pages? When do you allow this kind of coverage for one simple book that supposedly no one seemed to know about or cared about? Well, obviously people did care about that. That was causing an awful lot of damage. Dr. Mark Dury then a response to it, a 5-page response to Haitham Sidki. Now, you've not seen it, and you're not going to see it. This is just sent to some of us who are curious, who wanted to know what Dr. Mark Dury would think about it. And Dr. Mark Dury is a linguist. He has 2 doctorates, one in Arabic, one in Islam, and the other in linguistics. So he would be the perfect person to actually confront Haitham Sidki. And boy, does he do so. I wish you could read it. We're not permitted to give to you because he's not interested in this going public. He's not interested in this debate. He wanted Dr. Dan Brubaker to answer Haitham Sidki. That's why he stood back and said, no, Dr. Brubaker, this is your battle. This is your chance to respond to him. So that was on July of 2020 that Dury wrote his response. And then you had this response here in November of 2020, just a few months ago, written by 3 men, Mansour Ahmed and Farid al-Baharini. They were the ones that really wrote it. Ijaz Ahmed just did her introduction on the preservation of the Quran. But really, it's Mansour Ahmed, who I've known for years and years and years. He would be there at Speaker's Corner every Sunday. So we engaged for many years. He and I have engaged. This is the populist response. So this is a response by those who are on the internet or at Speaker's Corner. This is not an academic response by in any means. So this is nothing on the level of Dr. Brubaker's, but it is full of vitriol. Now, maybe it's just a quick one. Take a look at how many pages this is. 285 pages to try to debunk a book that's only 105 pages. What does that tell you? They are scared. They are running scared. And that was the first real rebuttal. And that was just a few months ago in 2020. And then there our good friend Dr. Yasser Qadhi. Dr. Yasser Qadhi. On November 26th, Thanksgiving Day, just a few months ago, decided to put a 51-minute video attacking myself, David Wood, and Dan Brubaker. Hold on a minute. Dan Brubaker, this is all he had written. What does this have to do with Yasser Qadhi? Not a thing. Yasser Qadhi, the whole Qira in the Ahruf argument is not about this. This is about the Razm, a completely different argument, a much earlier argument, a much more damaging argument than the Qira and the Ahruf. That is true. But there's holes in the standard narrative argument from June 8th of last year, from that interview, that disastrous interview, had nothing to do with Dan Brubaker. Dan Brubaker didn't even get into that discussion. Look at his YouTube site, Variant Quran. It's called. Here, I'm going to put the name right here, Variant Quran. See, that was just put up after. Well, that was about June of last year. That was put up basically to confront what he's doing here. He's saying, listen, since I'm getting so much reaction about my book, let's go ahead and put up and start putting some of this material up on YouTube so the whole world can see it. So Yasser Qadi on November 26 legitimately attacked me because I'm one of the ones that has been confronting him since the June 8th interview. And David Wood, he only spent 4 minutes on David Wood and didn't really say anything. He just called him all kinds of names. Just a lot of vitriol. With me, he tried to take me on 2 different things that I talked about, and I've already rebutted that, so I'm not going to get into that. He spent about 10 minutes on me. Guess how much time he spent on Dan Brubaker? 8 minutes. 8 minutes, twice as much as he spent on David Wood, he spent on Dan Brubaker. Why in the world is Yasser Qadi so concerned with Dan Brubaker when Dan Brubaker has said nothing about the Quran, has said nothing about the Ahruf? This is not his area of expertise. He's never even got into this debate. Why in the world does he spend 8 minutes of that video confronting Dan Brubaker? Well, I'll tell you why. Dan Brubaker is the next big conversation. The Ahruf and the Quran has taken up all of our time since last June, and that's why everybody has been focused on that. But I think Yasser Qadi knows something that the rest of us know. Dan Brubaker's material, these variants, these changes, 1, 2, 3, 4, right here on one page, these changes, these insertions, even outside of the margin, these are not just copyist errors. This is not just negligence. This is not just ineptitude. These are intentional changes. That's much more damaging because this has nothing to do with dots and vowels. These have nothing to do with those 5 dots and the 3 vowels. This has to do with the razm, the skeletal text, the consonantal text. Much more damaging. That's why Dr. Yasser Qadi zeroed in on Dan Brubaker, although it had nothing to do with him. It had nothing to do with him. And what did he do? Just use vitriol. This man knows no Arabic. How can he be an expert? He doesn't know any Arabic. Oh, I love that. Little does he know how much Arabic Dan Brubaker does know. So finally, last month, we finally get the rebuttal that we've been waiting for. This is it. By Daniel Allen Brubaker. January of 2021. It's finally come out. Now, this is because many of us have insisted he come out with it. It's only 18 pages long. And he just completely destroys Haitham Sidki. And he destroys also almost everything you're going to read in here, the 285 pages. Because there's nothing new here that Haitham Sidki didn't bring up. He destroys all that in this. And we're going to unpack this later on. This is first something that we're going to unpack. And probably Al-Fadi and I will probably do it together. But what Alan Brubaker has done here pretty much destroys everything that the Muslims have done to date. And I thought that would take care of it. No. Because this has now just come out. This is nothing more than a piece of paper of the cover of the book that has just now been published. I've just ordered it. I'm sure everybody is ordering it. And it is 105 pages. It's about the same length as Dan Brubaker's book. And what does it say? Refutation of Daniel Allen Brubaker's Corrections in Early Quran Manuscripts. Oh, here we go. One more person trying to take on Dan Brubaker. But who is this that wrote this? This is not Haitham Sidki, who is not an Arabist, who is not a Muslim, this is nothing, not even his field. This is not Mansur Ahmad, who is nothing more than someone who goes down to Speaker's Corner every Sunday and takes on every Christian he can get and only talks about the Trinity all the time. This is not Ijaz Ahmed, who is this guy who is always up on the internet all the time. Although the Muslims love him on the internet, but he has no degree behind him. He doesn't have any really academic acuity at all. Now, who is this guy? Oh, this is somebody of substance. This is the top in the world, in the Muslim world, on the Quran. This is none other than Dr. Tahir Al-Tukulich. Dr. Tahir Al-Tukulich, the man who is responsible for this book right here. The Musaf al-Sharif. This is his book. And this is just one of a number of books that he has published there in Turkey. He is considered to be the world's authority in the Muslim world on the Quranic manuscripts. This is the man that really needs to respond to Dr. Dan Brubaker. This is the man who is actually, in the Muslim world, there's no one better. He is the best you can get. He is the creme de la creme. He is the one that really needs to respond to Dr. Dan Brubaker. And what's fascinating, Dan Brubaker is not hardly known anywhere. So why is it that he is responding? Why is it that he has even read this book? This is put out by Amazon, published by Amazon. Why in the world would he be interested? Because that's no reputable publisher. That's not Brill or some of these other very reputable scholastic publishing companies. No. So why does Dr. Diet Altukulich suddenly do an entire book? This is a book. I just got the page because I haven't got it yet. I'm ordering it so I can look at it and so can also respond. Why is he interested in Dan Brubaker? Because Dan has dared to do what no one has done before. When you get people like Haydn Sidky and this whole group, this internet group and this Speaker's Corner group who write 285 pages, and when you get Diet Altukulich, the best that they've got, there's no one better in this area to even write and publish a book at his institution, the same publishing house that published this and all the other Qurans that they have now published there. That tells me that they are scared of Dan Brubaker. They are scared of Dan Brubaker. Why? Because when Dan Brubaker finished his doctorate in 2014, he only had found 800. 800. When he printed and published this book in 2019, this is only 22. 22 of 800. Hold on a minute. 22 of 800? No. Dan Brubaker has now found over 4,000. Over 4,000 of these corrections. Not just 22, not just 800, over 4,000. And you're going to see that all of these reviews, the ones that they put up on the internet, the 285 pages, they're trying to go through every one of these 22 and try to find all kinds of problems with those 22. And what is Altukulich doing? He does the same thing. He takes each one of those 22 and he tries to respond. And I've not read it yet, but you're going to see that's just 22 of 4,000. How are they going to keep up? Can you see why they're so scared of Dr. Dan Brubaker? Because he's just the first. He's the first one to do this. No one has done this before. No wonder every one of the Muslims, all the scholars now are going to have to train their mind on him. All the greatest, like the Altukuliches and the Militants, they're going to have to start taking him seriously. Because he is basically saying, don't waste my time with the Qira'ats. Don't waste my time with the Ahruf. Who cares about the dots and vowels? Let's go back to the consonant. Let's go back to the earliest manuscripts. Let's go back to those 8th and 9th century manuscripts which do not agree with each other and which don't agree with the Quran we have today and which are not complete. And let's look and see how much they have been manipulated, how many times they have been changed. And whenever anytime you see a manipulation, anytime you see a change, that means man has intervened. That means Allah has not protected his word. Allah has not protected his word. As it says in chapter 15, verse 9, that Allah will protect the Quran. Not one word, not one letter, according to every Muslim, when they read that verse, not one word or letter can be changed. Look at chapter 10, verse 15. You look at chapter 18, verse 27, and see that the word of God cannot be changed. Not one word, not letter. One letter can be changed, according to all the Muslim scholars. Yasakah, they used to say that over and over again. So here you have not one, not two, hundreds, not hundreds, thousands being changed. No wonder they're scared. And there's another side of it too, because they realize that he is their greatest threat. Dan Brubaker didn't start out that way. He didn't even intend that way. As he says in the introduction, I'm just doing textual criticism. I'm doing to the Quran what was already been done to the Bible. This should be an easy exercise. This should be not controversial. This should not be confrontational. Why are all the Muslims so angry? Where's their anger coming from? Did we get angry like this as Christians when they did the same thing to our Bible? No, we didn't. We knew that when you do this, that helps sharpen us. And this is what Dan did. This is what I call a white paper. What is a white paper? A white paper is what the government does in Britain when they want to try out a new idea. They put it out in the press and then they see how people respond. And then they get They see the response, and they know whether they go with that policy or not go with the policy. And in a sense, this is what we call peer review. In academia, you have peers who then review what is said, and they usually publish it, or in an article, or in this case, they write a whole book on it, an entire book. That's how serious he's taking it. He is writing an entire book. I don't think he's done this with any other Western scholar has he done this to. This is the first of its kind. And a man of his reputation proves to me that they see in Dan Brubaker a man that they fear. A man that they fear. Not too long ago, I watched the movie of Jeremiah Johnson. I'll end with this. Jeremiah Johnson, if any of you know him, was a trapper. In fact, he is actually the story that was put out a few years by Robert Redford, who played the main part. That is not important, but it's actually a tale that's a true story. Jeremiah Johnson had married a Indian squaw, and the Crow Indians killed his squaw and also the child that was with him. And so he decided to go on the warpath against the Crows. And so the Crows are unique in that they only attack their enemies one at a time. They don't attack a whole group. They're very, very noble, hugely, enormously noble people. And so they would only attack him one at a time, one at a time, one at a time. And he was way up in the mountains, the Rocky Mountains, and he was a trapper. He was always alone. He never had a cabin. He was always moving, trapping bear, trapping all kinds of fur. And of course, they would attack him all through the winter. They would attack, and everyone that would attack him, he would kill. And he would kill Indian after Crow Indian after Crow Indian after Crow Indian. In this scene, then, another trapper comes and shares the fire with him and looks at him. And he says, I see you still have your scalp. You remained alive after all these attacks. And then he says, you know, the Indians say that a tribe's greatness is figured on how mighty its enemy be. A tribe's greatness is figured on how mighty its enemy be. In a sense, Muslims realize that the greater their enemy, the greater the one who is confronting him. And interesting, Dan doesn't pretend to be an enemy. He's not. That's not his intent. He's just doing textual criticism. But for the Muslims, they realize that they got to pull out all their guns against Dan. And it looks like they have finally asked Takut to come to their rescue, because no one else seems to be able to take him on. One man against 1.6 billion Muslims. Because if Dan is right, and these are intentional changes, or these are corrections to other works that have to be brought back to a standardized text, which is what I think is going on here, they have to be brought back to a standardized text. If that is true, then that absolutely destroys the Quran from its very foundations, which destroys Islam. Can you then understand why they're so upset with Dan Brubaker and why they are so scared? We need to pray for Dan Brubaker because he needs an awful lot of help. One man against 1.6 billion. It's not easy. And he needs an awful lot of our support. Support Dan Brubaker. Buy his book. Look at Variant Quran. I'm going to put up the URL right here below me. You're going to see it. Go and watch his videos because he is putting them up once a week or once every 2 weeks, one at another. We're going through every one of these variants. 4,000 of them. I'm glad I'm not a Muslim. I'm glad I'm not up against Dan Brubaker because he has something they don't have. He has the truth. God bless you. This is Jay Smith. Over now.